The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel. Presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.
Welcome back to The Unlikely Innovators. If we were taking inspiration from the show Friends, this episode would be called The One About Jamie Oakenfold, but also The One About Thunder Bay.
Absolutely. This is a very Thunder Bay rich episode, I would say.
Yeah, but it was great great talking to Jamie. We obviously, as I already alluded to by saying her full name, that we had Jamie Oakenfold on of Thunder Bay to talk to us today about most recently winning a Northern Ontario Business Award for Entrepreneur of the Year, but specifically talking about her training business, which focuses on pre and postnatal for women in working out. So, Steve, I thought it was a great episode. I think what we really got from Jamie was, I think, definitely a nice cross section of geeking out about Thunder Bay, but I think also about the important work that she's doing in her community and how she's hoping to grow that, expand. I think the service and training that she's providing and support, I think, is what is really at the crux of this to not only women in her community, but I think beyond with Indigenous women in more northern communities. And then I think even having heard from her in the conversation that after the NOBA was published, she's getting inquiries from women in our community here in Sudbury, right? So I think this is obviously a service and a support network that's relevant to women everywhere. And so, we look forward to seeing what she does in the coming years, and hopefully she's able to make those goals happen.
Yeah, I mean, the name of the company is Oakenfold Strength and Athletics. So if you want to look that up, we'll also be putting this out on social media, of course. But yeah, it really, when you look at that triple bottom line, you want to make money at your business. You want to, have a good time and meet interesting people, but also to do social good, I think, is such an important thing. And that seems to be at the heart of what she's doing there. Yeah, I can't help it every time we talk about Thunder Bay to sort of geek out a bit. I just love that community so much. And that's a really non-obvious, non-typical love, I think. Not many people, or maybe a lot of people love Thunder Bay. Certainly the people of Thunder Bay love Thunder Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is non-obvious because, again, unless you've lived there or unless you've had to go there regularly enough that you can experience these things, like how would it be there? I would say that we're the outliers outside of the people that live in Thunder Bay. So
Absolutely.
I mean, you're right though. Every time somebody mentions Thunder Bay, I could go and wax poetic like for a long time. So
yeah, like an inordinate amount of time.
like an inordinate amount of time.
In fact, we'll actually cut it short there, and we'll now send it to Jamie Oakenfold. We're back, and we're joined by Jamie Oakenfold. Jamie started her fitness journey as a trainer at Movati Athletic for 9 years and eventually became a senior level trainer and managed the training team there. As the need for pre and postnatal fitness grew, Jamie decided to branch out on her own and help mothers have healthy and fit pregnancies. Additionally, she offered strength and conditioning training, small group classes, and boot camp classes. Now on her own, Jamie has the freedom to collaborate and network with others in the fitness industry, which has further grown in order to support women in Thunder Bay and the surrounding communities. Her motivation is that every client leaves each session having learned something new, enjoyed their workout, and felt productive. In the near future, as Oakenfold Strength and Athletics grows, her plan is to make her services easily accessible for women in northern communities. She's fresh off her win at the NOBA for Entrepreneur of the Year, and now she's a guest on the Unlikely Innovators. Thanks for joining us, Jamie.
Thank you.
So, Jamie, we typically start asking, like, what did you want to be when you grew up type question, but how did you go from having a degree in psych to physical fitness? Is that something you always wanted to do or always knew what you wanted to do, or how did that work out?
It's not what I always wanted to do. It was kind of a pivot movement. So I actually have a degree in neuropsychology, and I originally wanted to get into like clinical psychology. And then after kind of witnessing the masters and the PhD students have literally no life, and clinical psychology, from my perspective, seemed to be harder to get enrolled in than medical school. I might as well could have become a neurosurgeon before a clinical psychologist, but that's fine. After I completed my degree, I completed my degree at the University of Regina. So I'm originally from Saskatchewan.
Right on.
And then I decided, long story short, I'll just go to the beginning. So in between the summers of university, we would come out to Thunder Bay and fight fires with the MNR. And then as I completed my degree, I decided to stay in Thunder Bay because I really liked it here. I liked the outdoors. I had a really great friend group. And I was like, okay, well, if I stay here, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, like I like working out. I like fitness because I used to be a smoker. I used to have no exercise in my life. I didn't know what eating healthy was. So I completely changed that and overhauled it and then got really into it. So then I decided to apply at what was the athletic club back then. Now it's called Movati Athletic, as an entry-level trainer. So I got certified and everything. So I was just a full-time trainer there for about 7 years. And then I got promoted up to the personal training management position. So I managed a team of about 16 trainers and then over 300 clients. And then COVID hit. And that was fun to manage all of that.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of how I pivoted. So it just kind of took off from there.
And that leads to like my next question, because obviously I think being becoming a trainer and being a trainer is one thing, but to then go from working as a trainer and then working as a manager, like what is it like to transition to now it's your business and you're not only developing the programming and working with the clients, but you also have to do all the stuff on the back end to make sure that everybody's getting paid and the books are being paid on time. What was it like dealing with that learning curve for you?
So going from trainer to manager?
No, like from being a trainer to owning your own business and
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Lot less stressful. So going from a corporate company to basically a one-woman show, a lot less stress. I mean, deciding to go out on my own was more scary than actually doing and developing the business. Developing the business was kind of a fun process for me. I didn't find it stressful at all. I just made sure that I had all my ducks in a row before I launched and kind of just took off from there. So
that's a really lucky experience, I think, because I think most people when they start up companies, they're thinking, oh my God, I wish I had that job back at the corporate office again. But it seems you've had the inverse experience, eh?
Yeah, as a manager there, I was working very long days, and my own workout routine was non-existent again. And just because I would be at the office working, go home, work more, and the trainers and their clients also had access to me. So it was constant, like in the middle of the night, like emergency, you need to help me out with this, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, this is great. Like I have very little stress in my life now.
Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
So when you go out on your own and you obviously identify something that you want to specialize on, but what made you want to specialize on pre and postnatal fitness as a sort of a targeted area?
So prior to me getting certified in pre and postnatal fitness, there was nothing here for that. Nothing. And so during the second lockdown, when all the gyms were shut down, I wasn't doing anything. So I was like, well, I might as well get certified in something. So like I started researching some courses, and then I came across that there was like a pre and postnatal certification being offered. So I decided to take that. And then it wasn't until I met with my chiropractor and I asked him what, I was kind of gauging the market at that point, and I asked him what his pre and postnatal client load was like. And he told me that Thunder Bay has the most chiropractors per capita in all of Canada. And they were all busting at the seams with pregnant women at the time because people are stuck at home. What else are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So then he was like, why? I was like, well, I just got my pre and postnatal certification. So I'm just kind of gauging the market a little bit. And the first thing he said to me was, leave your job. Like leave, you're not going to have an issue finding clients. So I was like, oh. So then I decided, like, well, what would that look like? And then the ball started rolling, and I was like, well, I would have to get, like insurance for the business. I would have to get it registered. I would have to do all this stuff. And then it's like, well, what if it did happen? And then I talked to my boss and told her what I was thinking, and she said, do it. She said, try it out, and if it doesn't work out, you can always come back to us.
Oh, that's really good support. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah. So I was very lucky.
But I mean, obviously, like we're talking to you now, on the heels of winning the Nova for Entrepreneur of the Year. So obviously it's worked out. But the question I want to ask, and I kind of already know the answer because obviously it has worked out, and the award I think speaks to that. But you did some market validation, informally talking to your chiropractor. But obviously, once you put this out into the world, there was obviously some significant uptake. Can you talk about what that's like, where you have the idea, you get trained, you get certified, you get some validation there, and then the universe actually like picks up on what you're putting down? What was it like to have that kind of validation, come back from the community?
Yeah. So before I even put my business name out there, I went around to a lot of the chiropractors, physios, pelvic floor physios, midwives, anyone who deals with pre and postnatal women. I went out to them and dropped off all my business cards. I introduced myself, told them what I was doing. And that's kind of how it started as well. And it's a lot of word of mouth too. Thunder Bay is not a very big city.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how big Sudbury is, but Thunder Bay is about 110,000.
We're just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never stop talking about it.
And so it's not hard to get word of mouth around. And at the time, I was the only person offering this type of to this demographic. And additionally, I have been able to network with many, many great specialists in the city, and all of us have all agreed that there is a very large gap after. So once a woman has her baby, that support that she gets from like the OBs, midwives, family doctors, whichever, kind of bye, good luck.
Yeah.
When, if a woman has a C-section, that's major abdominal surgery. Like her insides are literally out on a table, like getting that baby out. And versus when a man has a vasectomy, he's given like everything, like, a handbook on how to care for everything afterwards. Whereas like after major abdominal surgery, they're like, figure it out on your own. And it's like, oh, by the way, don't lift your baby.
Yeah.
Regardless if you're a single mom or don't have the support that you have, whichever.
Yeah, we had to spread your ab muscles open, but take care.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get a little heated on this topic. So myself, massage therapists, chiropractors, pelvic floor physios have seen that gap. And it's kind of like, okay, so all of us can band together and really like put it out there to all the women. It's like, okay, so see Jamie for this, see this person for pelvic floor physio, see this person for chiropractic care, all that sort of stuff. So it's been great that way. So we've kind of had like a team together to help. So that's been phenomenal.
Yeah, it seems that people have to have that humility to understand what their scope of practice is, and that there should be a handoff between practitioners like yourself and the other ones. So it's good that you have a community that does that. And I think there's a benefit in doing that in a small community, right? At least starting the service, right? You can imagine, if you're in a place like Toronto, how many different places you'd be sent or trying to find something. It'd be very hard, right?
Yeah.
We're going to shift gears for a second, just because at the time of this recording, it is the new year. What are some, and this is just a bit of fun, but what are some non-obvious ways people can make sure they hit their sort of fitness goals, like in the new year? That I don't want to, like, the buddy system and all this stuff that's kind of like tired and older stuff, but like what is some non-obvious that we often forget or don't pay attention to?
A lot of the times people go big with their goals, which is great, but most of the time it's kind of a setup for failure, I hate to say. You got to take baby steps for those goals. And also at the same time, I actually just made a post about this where a lot of people pick goals that are kind of generic, that they don't really care about them. It's just goals that they think they should have, right? So those are more extrinsic goals. So extrinsic goals are where it's influenced by outside sources. So, social media telling you how you should look, family and friends telling you how to eat, and just stuff like that. And it's not helpful. So those are extrinsic goals where like the likelihood of you being successful is very low.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas intrinsic goals, when you peel back those layers of the onion and you get to the core, it's a little bit closer to the heart. So it's like, I do want to be able to do pull up. It's something that's been on my bucket list forever. I want to be able to do that. But pull-ups aren't, they're not like fancy. It's not like a huge weight loss journey, you know what I mean? But that's the sort of stuff that people need. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like my knees hurt all the time. How do I help that? It's like, should I lose weight? And it's like, well, no. I mean, you can just focus on like your functional movement patterns and getting your joints healthy. That's also something we can work at. So I would say like choose wisely your goals and take baby steps with them. So those are the two biggest things.
Yeah,
And
and it being specific to you is so important, right? Not something, as you say, that's just you've seen and other people are doing this, so it must be something I need to do too, right?
yeah, exactly. And oh gosh, what was I just gonna say? Um, I can't remember.
Well, I rudely jumped in, so maybe it'll come to you. I have a
Yeah.
habit of doing that sometimes, and you're coming at us from all the way in Thunder Bay, so there's probably a huge delay.
Oh, that's okay.
I picked up on this earlier when you were talking, Jamie. So like maybe I'll see if I can bring New Year's resolutions and intrinsic versus extrinsic goals together here by asking you. You mentioned you used to smoke. How did you quit smoking? The reason I'm asking you this is because I have a story that I'll share after, selfishly. But how did you kick that habit when you did back in the day?
So I was the type of smoker I was a social smoker, and also I just smoked like in the summertime. So, and it was my best friend who kind of pushed me. She's like, "Listen, it's not good for you. Why are you doing it? Both of your parents smoked, and your mom got like esophageal cancer from it. Like, why are you smoking?" I'm like, "Okay, I'll quit." And then I quit cold turkey, and it was easy for me to quit.
So yeah,
It's a good setup. That's a great setup.
It's interesting because I don't think I've shared this on the podcast before. I'm sure Steve's heard the story, but I tried to quit smoking, for a while. I knew that I shouldn't smoke. Like it was always, obviously I knew that it was dumb, but I did it because I used to work, shutdowns at the smelter in the summertime. So smoking was part of work. And then that just became like a thing that I did every time I would drink. So smoking heavily in the summer for sure. On camp weekends, you'd bring like 3 packs with you and they'd be gone by Saturday morning or whatever. And then so I went on the nicotine patch, but then I would take it off when I would party, and then I would smoke, and then I put it back on. So anyway, all this to say, it wasn't working, and I was still smoking. And then one day I went to visit my grandma in Sault Ste. Marie, and she's this tough old Ukrainian lady. And my grandfather died of throat cancer from smoking, and also probably working in the steel plant in the Sioux. And she had got wind that I was smoking because for a while it was like I was trying to keep it a secret, but obviously everyone knew that I was smoking. And then this was our first encounter, and I had no cigarettes on me. I was going to go to the corner store down the street, and I went into the house, and the first thing she said to me was, "You're a disgrace, and I hope that you never put a woman through what your grandfather did to me." And I never smoked another cigarette from then. That point on, I never wanted one because the shame she put into me was enough. That was it.
Yeah, it worked.
So
wow.
It's a good thing it didn't do the opposite effect, like it normally would for a lot of people.
Yeah, to say like I'm not going to listen to you, but no, it works. So I think I deep down knew that I wanted to quit smoking, but I almost needed that external push from somebody important in my life to kind of say like,
Yeah.
Get it together. But anyway, enough about that. We've already kind of teased this because obviously one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because you're obviously a recent recipient of Anova Northern Ontario Business Award for Entrepreneur of the Year. Obviously, like awards, people don't want to get hung up on them because you got to keep moving and keep going. But I think it still means a lot to get an award like this. So can you maybe talk about, what did it mean for you to be recognized by, your community and your peers across the region? And how are you going to use this to kind of keep moving forward with your plans?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question.
Mhm.
It was extremely validating. Because you apply to those types of things and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna win. Like, I mean, it'd be kind of cool if I did, but I'm not gonna win. And then one of my clients who wrote my reference letter for that award, she's like, "You're gonna win." She's like, "I just know you will." I was like, "Okay," but it's kind of it's a complicated emotion where it's like, yes, I feel super proud of myself. I feel validated, but also at the same time, like that little voice in the back of your head, you're like, you didn't deserve that. There's
Uh-huh.
way better trainers out there, and everybody else thinks so. So it's kind of like you got to kind of shut that voice down and almost try and relish in the positive emotions as best you can. But yeah, and then moving forward, so I'm hoping that in the future I get to work with more Indigenous communities because I've seen how the average Caucasian middle class woman gets treated after she has her baby. And I can't imagine what Indigenous women must be going through because the moment they get pregnant, say if, the one woman lives up north, she has to drive 5 hours just to see a doctor here.
Mhm.
And most of the time, the likelihood of her getting met with some sort of stereotyping, condescension, she's usually asked, "Is this your first child?" Because it's assumed that it's not. And it's also they raise flags for Indigenous women if they have multiple children. They'll raise flags for a lot of not welfare, child services, so without their knowledge. And additionally, a lot of their traditions are um, not exactly lost, but kind of dumbed down in traveling to new places because there's a lot of ritual and traditions when a woman is pregnant and when she's delivering the baby, and that gets lost a lot of the times. And COVID just made it way worse because they're very family oriented, and they weren't allowed to have their elders around. They weren't allowed to have their family around during COVID. So that was disheartening to hear. But it's getting better. There is Indigenous doulas now. So there in Thunder Bay, there is Dolico midwives, which help with the Indigenous women in the community. But obviously more needs to be done. And I hope that there is some funding out there, or, I'm more than willing to go virtual with these women, but just to make it easier for them to access specialists like myself. So that's what I'm hoping to get eventually.
And actually, that's a question I had, and maybe you can enlighten me here. Is like in terms of like what you're doing now, do you have virtual offerings like to other communities? Yep. Okay.
Actually, after my Nova got published in one of the articles, a woman from Sudbury reached out to me. So I just did her assessment earlier this week, and we're set for next week.
Yeah, because I was just thinking this, like if you're in communities like in our community, obviously I think would be one, because I don't know for sure, but off the top of my head, I don't think I've heard of anybody that specializes in this in our community. So I mean, certainly I think your point is well taken, that obviously, especially in far northern communities, if we don't have them here in the major centers in northern Ontario, what are those supports like across the
Yeah.
entire region, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
but speaking of Thunder Bay, I want to switch gears. This is a fun one. But again, we like to have a little bit of fun on this podcast. I know that you're not, originally from Thunder Bay, and I lived in Thunder Bay for a time when I was a kid. So anyone who's lived in Thunder Bay knows that the Persian looms large.
Yep.
So one question is, obviously, I know that it's not necessarily in keeping with a healthy lifestyle, but do you agree that Persians are one of the more well-known treats that Thunder Bay has to offer, or do
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Okay,
And also
Is
they
it
are
is it
part of a
justified?
healthy, balanced lifestyle. You
of
can have a
course,
Persian every once in a while.
yeah,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say Persians, and then we're getting a lot of great craft breweries here,
yes,
which I'm okay with. There's a lot of local businesses. Thunder Bay's very like shop local,
Mhm.
just because there's tons here now. But yeah, like Persians and breweries, it's
Have
great.
you ever
I'm,
have you ever tried a Sally Ann?
With the Sally Ann.
Oh man, I might be teaching you something. So also at is it Nucci's?
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, they also have this thing called, and I spent a fair bit of time at my last job at Thunder Bay, and some of the folks at the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Center actually took me under their wing culinarily. Um, and they brought me to a lot of the local places. And one of the things, like they said, yeah, we're known for Persians, but if you ever have the opportunity to try Sally Ann, it's like this small coconut covered dessert that they also have at Nucci's that is
Oh,
delectable. It's real good.
I've never heard of it.
Well, ask some locals that have some years on you there, and maybe they'll point you in the right.
Yeah.
I could also be I could be deluding myself, but I'm quite sure they have these things called Sally Ann's. Did
no,
I mention that when we were there, Mike?
no, I know about those because
Oh, he
I
knows
used
about
to
them. There you go.
when I lived in Thunder Bay, one of my buddies was the son of the family that owns New Cheese Bakery, so I remember the Sally Ann's. But yeah,
Oh yeah. I know the new cheese. I know the bakery. I don't go there just because it's I also live across the street from Holland Bakery.
Oh yeah.
So if you've ever had a Holland Bakery donut,
we haven't done that.
I haven't
yeah.
had one of those. I was sad to see, and this is turning into a very Thunder Bay episode, but
That's fine.
um, I used to go to was it Hari's? Have you ever the Finn Bakery? Uh,
Oh,
like in Finn, they say the R word, so they call it Hari's. He was this Finn guy. It was a red building right before Bay Street on the right hand
are
side.
you talking about the Hoito?
No, I'm not. It's near the Hoito, but it was this old like middle-aged Finn guy that would go back to Finland every winter. But he had like some of the best pula I've ever had.
Oh,
Um, right off Bay Street, but it closed down.
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah, we tried to go there. Mike and I were in Thunder Bay in the fall, and I tried to bring him there, but they weren't open anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I just love Thunder Bay for some reason. People always say like, why do you like Thunder Bay so much? And I'm just like the restaurants. You're quite right. The eat local culture there is unreal. You
Yeah.
know, just the amount of cool.
It's just getting better and better. And
Yeah,
also, one of my friends, she opened up the old Eaton Center. Like it was just like an empty building, and she turned it into a huge market.
that's unreal.
And it's thriving right now. It's
Hmm.
doing very well. And like there's like a cafeteria and bar inside of it. There's like a lot, like all these different shops in there. They're hoping to put up like a bunch of stuff upstairs. Like, yeah, it's very impressive.
Go
What?
Thunder Bay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you've heard me say that. I think like it Sudbury's bigger, but like I always say that the downtown Thunder Bay, like when you get the like Tomlin Red Lion, that little corner there of like you can't beat it. Like we have nothing like that in our city, and every time we go to Thunder Bay, I'm like, yes, this is where I want to be. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. For
And
sure.
then remember, oh, actually, I was gonna say we did karaoke up the street there at the Sauve, but or was that no? That was the Prospector.
uh I forget where that
Or the Foundry.
the
That was
Foundry.
the
That's what
Foundry.
it was.
That's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Foundry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
A
a
little off
couple more
track.
things. One of the things, like, this seems silly now because we're talking about Thunder Bay so much, but um, I used to work out quite a lot when I was like playing competitive sports, and now I've got back into training again over the last little while. And one of the this sounds silly to a trainer, I'm sure, but one of the things that my trainer, who's also my brother-in-law, he has a gym here in Sudbury, he introduced me to like external rotations for shoulders
Yep.
that were game changers because if you're doing a lot of like shoulder press and any kind of exercise like that, if you don't also spend time doing external rotation stretches, you're really limiting yourself. And I didn't know that. So that was like a big game changer for me. Are there
Mhm.
any other sort of overlooked training tips like that that you could share with us?
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The biggest thing is just do your functional work. It's boring, but like it's so needed, especially as you age.
Mm.
And it's almost like when you hit 30, you're like, why is my body so broken all the time? I don't understand. And so this time last year, I PR'd my deadlift. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, oh, like my sciatic nerve is like just fired up right now. And it was getting to the point where I had to get carried to bed. So then I went and saw my chiropractor, and he's like, yeah, you have a bulging disc and a pinched nerve. And, so then went and saw like an orthopedic surgeon and all that. And basically he was like, no more lifting, no more running, no twisting, nothing. I was like, well, what can I do then? And he said, your rehab work. That's it. I'm like, for the rest of my life? He's like, pretty much.
Oh no.
So I went ham on my rehab work for like 6 to 7 straight months. That's all I did. And now my deadlift and my squat, I'm not supposed to be doing them, but they're back to where they were.
Wow.
Like in terms of like same PRs, and back is like feeling good.
You healed yourself
Yeah.
non-surgically.
Yeah. So, and I get this with all of my clients. For example, like I'm like, okay, so when do you see your physio next? It's like, okay, next week. Have you been doing your exercises? No. I'm going to tell you as a specialist how frustrating that is, because we are trying to help you and you're not helping yourself. And it's like, well, I don't have the time. And it's like, okay, let's break this down. There's 168 hours in a week. You work 40 of them, roughly. X amount of hours of sleep, X amount of time getting ready for the day, X amount of time for errands, hanging out with your kids if you have kids, stuff like that. You end up having 30 to 40 extra hours a week. Now you're saying that you don't have time. That's a little bit of BS. Like just do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. 10 minutes a day of your rehab work, whether that be like foam rolling, lacrosse ball rolling, stretching, whatever. But it's incredibly frustrating for specialists to hear that, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm just trying to help you.
Yeah. And it works. My God, it works. The exercise. I had a shoulder issue not too long ago, unsurprisingly, because I didn't know about external rotations, and it works if you actually do put in the time to do the exercises. It works so much faster than just going for the treatments, right?
Yeah. Oh, it
Yeah.
totally does. And people are always so shocked. Like, oh my God, it actually worked. Like,
Yeah, it's almost like it's a science.
yeah. So it's gotten to a point where I almost like have to incorporate the rehab exercises, and I do, especially for the pelvic floor stuff and core, like all that core stuff, because my clients need to have strong cores. So I do all that rehab stuff with them because it's not going to get done otherwise. So
Yeah. Well, look, Jamie, you've been super gracious and generous with the time you've given us so far. I know you mentioned that you want to sort of propel yourself using the notoriety from the NOBA into helping Indigenous communities, and I think that is a noble effort that you're going to be doing sort of immediately. What else is next, sort of for Jamie Oakenfold in the sort of near term that you could tell us about?
I mean, hopefully within the next 5-ish years to continue doing what I'm doing, but also I would love to open up almost like a wellness studio here. where it's kind of a one-stop shop for women, where it has, personal training, it has massage therapy, nutrition, regular therapy, pelvic floor physio. So it's kind of like an all-encompassing space for all women to get their needs met. So that's the idea. That's the long-term goal.
Well, and you can imagine, I mean, then you got practitioners like inter-referring and then making programs that work with each other. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we're really happy to have stumbled across the Northern Ontario Business Awards page, and we're like, we need to have her on. So I'm glad you were able to join us today, and thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Mike, we're now back. That was Jamie Oakenfold of Oakenfold Strength and Athletics. Let me ask you something. When we were in Thunder Bay last, we climbed in a clandestine way Mount McKay.
Yes.
Which is a mesa, as we were told. It's not a mountain; it's a mesa. It's a geological feature in just right outside the town of Thunder Bay. Did that sort of spark your love of wanting to climb more mountains? Because after that, we climbed a mountain in Jasper. Was that the sort of first moment?
To be honest, like at the time, like if I now stitch together and then going from that mountain in Jasper to getting a mountain tattooed on my arm, I'd like to say that no, because I think it was always there. You know, like I always like when I went to California, like for my honeymoon, like seeing the mountains as we kind of like driving through like Pacific Highway 1, like I was always into them, right? And then like my wife jokes that like you've never been into mountains, but I have been, and I've talked about them. Nobody was listening to me, but I've always been like I had some kind of infatuation with them, right? So like when the opportunity came up in Thunder Bay, when we had some time to kill, like do you want to hike to the top of Mount McKay? It's like, yeah, I do. I definitely don't like I don't like heights, but like I like hikes. And I like getting to the top of it and seeing the view and seeing what it's all worth, like after you've done the hard work. But maybe that did start it again. It rekindled my love of mountains.
Could be. And you know what I like when we climb mountains together? I like scaring you by jostling you over like the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
And that'll never get old for me. If it's in a gondola or on the edge of a boardwalk on top of a cliff, I will be scaring Mike. I
felt more uneasy at the edge of Mount McKay on that rickety wooden structure than I did in a gondola going up to the top of Whistler's Mountain in Jasper. I'll say that, because at least I'm secure in the gondola. Who knows, like when the last time that wooden that footpath has been maintained, or if something goes awry, you trip, you throw me over the ledge, and that's the end of this podcast.
And then it's like Chantel, he didn't make it.
You know what they say, you miss Mount McKay, you miss Thunder Bay.
And with that,
no, I'm not done talking about Thunder Bay. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
No, I'm just joking.
I think we've said quite enough about Thunder Bay.
I think Thunder Bay is good right now. I think we've done enough free promotion. So yeah, it's your point. I think that's again, great chatting with Jamie today. It's always great to I think meet new people and also find out about the incredible work that she's doing in her community, and I think that she'll be doing in other communities in the coming years. So I'm sure we'll see her again in the news. I'm sure there's more Nobas in her future if she keeps on this track.
Goodbye, everyone.
The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel, presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.